Greetings, this is Dr. Douglas Maurer from iMedicalApps with another medical app review. Today we're going to be taking a look at a new app called mFRAT. mFRAT stands for the Mobile First Responder Radiological Assessment Triage Tool. You can see here the disclaimer when you open the app. The app comes from the Armed Forces Radiological Research Institute, which is based on the campus of the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences and the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. The AFRRI has been around continuously since the 1960s. The idea of this app is if you have a radiological or radiation casualty, you can help triage and assess this patient and potentially predict their outcome. The app, as you can see, defaults to the screen where you put in patients that you're triaging. You can add as many as you want, for example. Let me show you a couple other things first. So under support, the app contains numerous directions that explains every step of the triage and assessment process, which I think is great. Most apps don't contain good instructions. This one has almost instructions to a fault. The app also contains this outstanding pocket guide. It's kind of a radiation casualty 101 that tells you everything you wanted to know about how to assess these patients and what are some considerations. Also gives an abundant of information about the developers of the app. This app had been a Windows kind of online app, and now it's available for the first time for both Android and iOS. So in our scenario, we had an example. So let's start with that. You add a patient by hitting the plus screen. You can give an identifier. It tells you how to use, not HIPAA, let's just say it's me. You can then describe signs and symptoms, and we said that this person had vomiting, and they had vomiting relatively soon after the onset of the exposure, and we'll say it's been less than that, and they also had diarrhea about the same time. We'll say it was moderately severe. They did have a headache, also occurred in the same time frame. We'll say it's mild. We'll say their consciousness isn't impaired. They don't have an elevated body temperature or redness. They are tachycardic. They're not weak, but they are fatigued. You can save that information, and then if you know whether or not the actual dosimetry that they were exposed to, you can add that, or you can attempt to estimate it, or you can simply say it's unknown. Same thing with the radionuclide contamination, and we'll say that they were contaminated, but we don't know whether they were internally contaminated or not. You can save that. In our emergency room setting, we obtained a white blood cell count. We'll say it was done 4 hours after exposure, and the count was 1.8. We've added that. We can add any notes about the patient or the situation. We'll just say local nuclear power plant meltdown, or whatever the situation may be. And then you hit assessment results, and unfortunately this is a severe exposure, and it gives you some information. Estimated radiation exposure based off those symptoms with some confidence intervals, which is really cool. And then the fact that it's still not super reliable, but that this patient likely has a very poor prognosis. It gives you some information about how those calculations are done. That's really the app in summary. That's its real purpose, is to assess and triage. You can see other folks I've put in here. So some things I liked about the app: it takes this existing online tool, which I didn't know even existed, and puts it at the point of care for anyone to use. You can see it's pretty easy to use. You simply plug and chug the data, hit assess, and it spits out the outcome. It has very detailed instructions and definitions along each step of the way for what each of these means. It has this pocket guide, which I think is really nice, includes some tables, etc. It's also available for Android, which is nice to see for once. Some things I didn't like about the app: these assessments that are on here, you can't actually print or email them from the app. Again, that's probably because of HIPAA issues, but still it'd be nice to have that option. There are a number of references that are included within the app, but there's no links to those. They're just sort of listed. Now, there are some links here. I give them credit for that. These websites are here, and there are PubMed hyperlinks available. So I'll change that in the online review. So that's actually great to see. And the tables and graphs that are here are high quality, but they don't rotate into landscape view, which is kind of a bummer. But this app is free, so you can't expect it to be perfect. So overall, I think a nice addition to the App Store, particularly for those who are first responders or emergency medicine, radiologists, or anyone in the military who may have to care for patients who have